disguised alpha vampire saw his poor widow servant cutting wood at 2 a.m., then learned why the castle of Valeth stood on a jagged cliff, its dark towers reaching like blackened fingers into the night sky. A cold wind swept through the courtyard, carrying whispers of long-forgotten secrets. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, leaving only the faint glow of lanterns to mark the edges of the stone walls. Inside the castle, the Alpha of the Northern Wards, known to his servants as Lord Kale, moved quietly through the halls. To the world, he appeared as a nobleman of striking presence, tall, strong, with dark hair and pale skin that almost seemed to glow under candlelight. But beneath this human guise, Kale was a creature of the night, a vampire whose strength and power were feared across kingdoms. He had ruled for centuries, yet few knew the truth of his nature. This night Kale's steps carried him outside, drawn by a restlessness he could not name. The castle grounds were silent, almost unnervingly so, and his keen senses detected a faint movement at the edge of the forest. A flicker of shadow, a soft sound of snapping wood. Curiosity pulled him closer. In the clearing just beyond the castle walls he saw her. Ilara, a young widow and one of his servants, was chopping wood beneath the faint starlight. Her hair was tied back in a simple braid, and her hands, though small and delicate, moved with surprising strength and skill. The moonlight reflected off her axe with a sharp glint as it rose and fell, striking the wood in a steady rhythm. Kale's eyes narrowed. It was nearly 2 in the morning. Why would a servant be out here in the cold at this hour? His mind raced with possibilities, some trivial, some dangerous. He approached silently, letting his presence remain hidden at first, observing the small figure working tirelessly. She did not notice him immediately. She was focused, almost desperate, her breath visible in the frosty air. Her arms trembled with exhaustion and small bruises marked her hands, yet she kept going. The sight stirred something unfamiliar in Kale, a mixture of curiosity, concern, and a strange admiration. He stepped forward, his boots crunching softly on the snow-covered ground. Ilara froze mid-swing, her eyes wide, heart racing. For a moment she looked as if she were about to run, but the forest held her in place. "Why are you out here?" Kale's voice was calm but carried an authority that could not be ignored. Ilara's hands tightened on the axe handle. I have work that cannot wait," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "It is nothing, my lord." Kale studied her carefully. She was lying, he could sense it, but he did not press her immediately. Instead, he observed the small pile of wood at her feet, the way she moved, and the haunted look in her eyes. Something heavy weighed on her, and he could feel it across the cold night air. "Your hands are bruised," he said softly, stepping closer. "And yet you keep going. Why?" Ilara swallowed, fighting to maintain her composure. She had been alone in the castle for months since her husband's death, struggling to keep herself and the small household running. She had no family left, no one to care for her, and pride and perhaps fear kept her from asking for help. It must be done," she whispered, almost to herself. "There is no other way." Kale's dark eyes narrowed, and he finally stepped fully into the moonlight. The silver glow highlighted the sharp lines of his face, the depth of his gaze. Ilara's breath hitched slightly. There was something in him, something ancient, powerful, and dangerous, yet it did not frighten her as much as it should have. Instead, she felt a strange pull, a mixture of fear and fascination. "I can help," Kale offered, his voice low and calm. Ilara shook her head quickly. "No, my lord, you need not trouble yourself." Kale tilted his head, studying her. He could see the truth written in every movement, in the way her shoulders slumped under invisible weight, in the stubborn determination in her eyes. She was not merely chopping wood for warmth or cooking. There was something deeper, something she would not speak of. "Then tell me why," he said firmly, his voice carrying a weight that made her pause. For a long moment she remained silent, her axe suspended in the air. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, she spoke. I protect something, she said, glancing around the forest as if it might hear her words. Something that cannot fall into the wrong hands. It is why I cannot rest, why I cannot stop. Kale's curiosity sharpened. His instincts told him that her secret was tied to dark forces, perhaps even dangerous magic. Yet there was also honesty in her fear and determination. He stepped closer, but with care, not wishing to frighten her further. "What is it you protect?" he asked gently. Alara's hands shook as she gripped the axe. She looked at him, eyes wide, debating whether she could trust him. Finally she spoke, her voice tight with emotion. "I cannot tell you, not yet." Kale's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. He liked a challenge. More than that, he admired courage, and she had it in abundance. "Very well," he said softly. "Then I will watch over you silently until you are ready to speak." For a moment, Alara simply stared at him, uncertain. His presence was both comforting and terrifying. She did not know whether to feel safe or to fear that her secret could bring danger to him. A sudden rustle in the trees made her freeze. Kale's senses immediately sharpened, every hair on his body alert. He saw the flicker of movement, small, shadowy figures creeping along the forest edge. "They are coming," he said, his voice tense. Alara's eyes widened in terror. "Who?" Kale did not answer immediately. He could feel the dark magic in the air, subtle but unmistakable. Whoever or whatever was moving through the forest was drawn to her, and Kale knew, without needing words, that her work in the middle of the night was not merely laborious, it was dangerous. "Stay close to me," he ordered, stepping in front of her protectively. Together they moved through the clearing toward the castle, Kale's senses alert to every sound, every shadow. Alara's heart pounded in her chest, both from fear and something else she could not name, a strange, magnetic pull toward the mysterious lord who had appeared from the night. As they reached the edge of the forest, Kale's gaze lingered on her, intense and unyielding. She felt exposed under the weight of his stare, yet also strangely safe. "Rest now," he said softly, glancing at the castle doors that loomed ahead. "You will need your strength for what is to come." Alara nodded, grateful yet conflicted. She wanted to speak, to explain everything, but she could not. Not yet. Kale watched her enter the castle and disappear into the shadows of the great hall. Then he turned back toward the forest, silent and vigilant. The night was far from over. Something dark and dangerous lurked beyond the trees, drawn by the same force that haunted her. And Kale knew he could not let her face it alone. As the wind howled across the cliffside, he felt the first stirrings of a feeling he had not known in centuries, concern for a human, genuine and fierce. It was a dangerous thing, this emotion, and he fought against it, yet he could not deny its presence. In the distance, the moon slipped behind the clouds, plunging the clearing into darkness. Alara's secret remained hidden, yet it called to him, whispering of danger, of magic, and of a bond that would grow stronger with each passing night. Kale's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. He would learn her secret, and when he did, he would protect her whatever the cost. The forest seemed to shiver around them, alive with unseen watchers. And in that shivering, Kale sensed the first thread of a story that would bind them together in ways neither of them could yet imagine. Somewhere in the heart of the shadowed forest, a secret waited, and Kale knew that when it revealed itself, nothing would ever be the same. And so the night stretched on, silent, cold, and full of unspoken tension, leaving Kale and Alara standing at the edge of a destiny neither had chosen, but both would soon be forced to face. The castle of Valeth slept under a blanket of fog, its towers looming like silent sentinels over the dark forest below. Inside, the grand hall smelled faintly of burning wood and herbs, and the flickering candlelight painted shadows that danced across the walls. Kale, the alpha of the northern wards, sat in his private chamber, a heavy cloak draped over his shoulders, his mind restless. Alara's image haunted him, the widow chopping wood in the cold night, her small frame shivering under the weight of her work, yet her hands and eyes full of determination. There had been a strange bravery about her, a stubborn fire that refused to be extinguished by grief or fear. Cale had encountered many humans in his long life, but few had stirred such a deep, unexplainable curiosity. The door creaked open softly, and Alara stepped inside, holding a small bundle of chopped wood. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, and a thin layer of frost clung to her braid. "You work too hard," Cale said, his voice calm yet edged with concern. Alara started slightly and then lowered the wood quietly. "My lord, it cannot be helped. There is much to do." Cale's dark eyes softened as he studied her. "You risk yourself every night," he said. "Do you not fear the forest? Its shadows are not empty. They watch, they wait." Alara lowered her gaze, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I have lived with fear for a long time. I have learned to walk with it, even when it wants to consume me." Cale leaned back in his chair, studying her. He could sense the truth in her words, but he also felt the subtle vibrations of something else, magic, dangerous and restrained, hidden beneath her grief and determination. "You carry more than fear," he said slowly. "Tell me, Alara, what is it you protect? Why do you work through the night alone when it could harm you?" Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the wood against the wall. She was about to answer, but hesitation gripped her. The truth was heavy, filled with danger that she could not yet share. Still, she owed him some trust. He had shown concern when no one else had. "I am cursed," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not by choice, but by fate. The curse was placed on me long ago, and it drains the life of anyone who shows me kindness or love." Cale's brow furrowed. "Drains their life?" "Yes," she said, swallowing hard. "Even a simple act of care could harm them. That is why I work alone. That is why I never ask for help. I cannot risk anyone, not even you." Cale remained silent, letting her words settle. A strange weight pressed against his chest. She feared him, yet she spoke honestly, revealing the core of her suffering. Her life had been trapped in an invisible prison, and every act of connection could lead to disaster. "Why chop wood at night?" Cale asked, his curiosity sharpening. "Surely the castle has servants who could do this during the day." Alara's eyes flickered with pain. "During the day I would risk being watched by others, and the forest is different at night. The shadow spirits cannot reach me then. It is the only time I am safe enough to gather what is needed." Cale rose, moving closer to her. "Shadow spirits," Alara nodded, lowering her gaze. "They are drawn to my curse. They seek to control it, to use it for power. If they find me unprotected, they could destroy everything I care for." Cale's eyes darkened. He had faced dangerous creatures before, but this was different. The forest itself seemed to twist and bend around her curse, as if the land had recognized her as something special and dangerous. "Then you are not merely a servant," Cale said softly, more to himself than to her. "You are a protector, even without the knowledge of others." Alara's lips quivered, but she nodded. "I have no choice. I have lived in fear for so long. If I do not act, if I fail, then more than my life is at risk." Cale studied her closely. She was fragile, yes, but there was also a strength in her eyes, a stubbornness that refused to be broken by fate or fear. It was a rare quality, one that demanded respect. "I will help you," he said finally. "Not because I must, but because I choose to. If danger comes, you will not face it alone." Alara's eyes widened. "My lord, you must not. You would be harmed if you tried." Cale shook his head. "I am not so easily harmed," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "You are not the only one who has endured pain in silence." Her gaze lingered on him, uncertain, as if she wanted to believe him but could not yet allow herself to trust. Cale took a step closer, his presence a mixture of power and quiet warmth. She felt her heart beat faster, a feeling she had not allowed herself in many years. For the first time, she allowed herself to speak more of the curse. "The warlock who cursed me, he said it would be my burden forever, that anyone who loved me would suffer, and eventually they would perish. Kale's dark eyes narrowed. And yet here you are, alive after all this time. Alara's voice broke. Barely. I have learned to hide the effects, to work in shadows, to survive without asking for anything from anyone. Kale's expression softened. He understood her pain, her fear of connection, and the courage it took to continue living despite the curse. He felt a rare stirring of empathy, a dangerous thing for a vampire who had spent centuries guarding his heart. "You are not alone anymore," Kale said, his voice low and certain. "I will stand with you even if the curse seeks to harm me. We face it together." Alara's eyes glistened, though she quickly blinked away the tears. "You do not understand. It is not just dangerous, it is consuming. Even a glance, a kind word could take life from you." Kale stepped closer, lowering his voice to a soft, commanding whisper. "Then we will be careful. I will learn your limits. I will protect you." For a long moment the room was silent, filled only with the sound of distant wind rattling the castle walls. Alara felt a mixture of fear and relief, and something else, something she had not felt in years, the stirring of hope. Their fragile peace was broken by a sudden, unnatural chill. The candles flickered and shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls. Kale's eyes darkened. He could sense them, the shadow spirits of the forest, drawn by her curse, seeking to test her strength. "They are near," he said, his voice tense. "We are not safe even here." Alara's hands clenched. I cannot let them take anything from this castle, not after all I have fought for." Kale nodded. "Then we prepare. I will teach you how to defend yourself, and I will stand by your side." The night stretched on, filled with whispered instructions, careful movements, and a quiet understanding. Alara learned how to sense the subtle shifts in the air, the faint traces of magic that indicated approaching danger. Kale watched her, guiding her without overwhelming, allowing her to retain her independence while offering protection. As the hours passed, the bond between them grew, subtle but undeniable. Alara began to trust Kale, sensing that he was not like the others. He was strong, yes, but he also understood suffering, isolation, and the weight of secrets carried alone. Yet the night was far from over. In the forest beyond the castle walls, dark eyes watched them. The shadow spirits had sensed the Alpha's presence and were intrigued, drawn to the combination of her curse and his power. They lingered, patient, waiting for the moment to strike, knowing that the smallest mistake could unravel everything. Alara and Kale stood side by side at the edge of the castle courtyard, staring into the darkness. The wind carried faint whispers, unintelligible but ominous. "You must be ready," Kale said quietly, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "Whatever comes, we face it together. Your secret is safe with me." Alara nodded, feeling the weight of his words. For the first time in many years, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she did not face the curse alone. Yet the fear remained, the fear of what the night might bring, the fear of losing the one who had chosen to protect her. A sudden rustle in the forest made them both freeze. Kale's senses sharpened instantly. Something was moving among the shadows, deliberate, patient, and dangerous. "They are testing us," Kale whispered. "Soon they will act. Are you ready?" Alara swallowed hard, gripping her cloak. I will try. I must be ready." Kale's eyes softened. "You are stronger than you know, and you are not alone." The wind howled, carrying the faint scent of magic and darkness. And in that moment, the two stood together, united by circumstance, trust, and the first fragile threads of connection that neither had expected. Somewhere in the forest, the shadow spirits lingered, unseen but present, waiting for the night when the curse and its guardian would face them fully. The night was far from over, and the first real test of trust, courage, and survival was only beginning. The first light of dawn barely touched the jagged peaks surrounding Werewolf Castle. Fog lingered like a silken shroud over the forest, twisting among the ancient trees, hiding the secrets of the night. Inside the castle, Kale moved silently through the halls, his senses alert to the faintest sound. Even in sleep, Alara could not rest fully, for the curse she carried was not idle. Its magic pulsed like a living thing, calling attention from forces that desired to exploit it. Kale's eyes narrowed as he passed the windows, scanning the forest beyond. He sensed them, the shadow spirits of the night, lurking closer than before, drawn by the strength and determination of the young widow he had vowed to protect. The forest seemed to hum with anticipation, as if it waited for the inevitable clash. Alara emerged from her small chamber, wrapped in a worn cloak. Her hands were raw from chopping wood the night before, but her eyes shone with determination. She met Kale's gaze, and for a moment the silence between them held the weight of centuries. "They are coming," Kale said softly, his voice carrying both warning and reassurance. "You must be ready." Alara swallowed, her fingers tightening around the edge of her cloak. I will do what I must, but I do not want to fail. Not now, not ever." Kale stepped closer, the warmth of his presence brushing against her in a subtle but grounding way. "You will not fail. You have strength I have not seen in many humans, and you do not stand alone." The air shifted, a subtle tremor running through the castle walls. The shadows in the corners seemed to stretch unnaturally, reaching, testing. Kale's instincts flared. "They are here." The shadow spirits emerged from the forest like a tide of darkness, moving swiftly and silently. Their forms were vague and flickering, not fully tangible, yet their presence carried menace. They circled the courtyard, drawn to Alara's latent magic. Alara's heart pounded in her chest, but she did not step back. Kale's calm presence steadied her, anchoring her fear. He gestured toward the edge of the courtyard. "Follow my lead, trust yourself and me." The first spirit lunged, moving with a speed that made the air itself ripple. Alara dodged instinctively, her hands raised, her pulse syncing with the rhythm of the danger. Kale moved beside her, his presence a protective shield. He could strike without hesitation, yet he restrained himself, knowing she needed to fight and learn, even if it meant danger. "You are stronger than you think," he said, his voice a whisper over the chaos. "Feel the magic inside you. Use it, control it." Alara closed her eyes briefly, taking a deep breath. The forest, the shadows, the air itself seemed to respond to her will. Slowly, carefully, she guided a faint pulse of energy outward, and the spirits recoiled, flickering uncertainly. Kale's eyes gleamed with approval. "Yes, that is it. Keep control. Do not let fear rule you." The spirits regrouped, circling faster, their movement like smoke in a storm. Alara's pulse quickened, her mind struggling to balance fear and focus. She faltered, and one of the spirits darted toward her, its form sharper, more defined. Kale acted instantly, placing himself in front of her. His hand was a shield, his presence a barrier of strength. The spirit struck, and Kale's eyes glowed faintly as he used just enough of his power to repel it, not destroy it. "You cannot protect me forever," Alara whispered, fear and frustration in her voice. "No," Kale admitted softly, "but I can stand with you until you are ready to face them fully. You are stronger than the curse, Alara, stronger than you know." For a long moment they moved together, side by side, dancing around the spirits, their movements precise, controlled, and in silent harmony. Every glance, every shared breath, every instinctive action deepened their unspoken bond. Neither had admitted it aloud, yet both felt it, a connection that went beyond fear, beyond duty, beyond the curse. Suddenly, a shadow spirit separated from the group. Its form was sharper, more malicious, and it moved with a speed that made the night itself shiver. It darted toward Alara with precision, and for the first time she faltered. Kale's senses flared. With a burst of speed that blurred his movements, he intercepted the spirit, striking with controlled force. The spirit recoiled, and Kale's eyes glowed with a dangerous light. Alara watched, her heart pounding. For the first time she saw him fully powerful, commanding, yet focused entirely on protecting her. "You trust me?" he asked, his voice low but firm. Alara swallowed hard, her breath trembling. "Yes," she whispered. "Good." Then trust yourself as well, he said. Your magic, your courage, they are enough. Drawing on his words, Alara focused again, guiding the energy of her curse into a controlled pulse. This time the spirits recoiled even farther, hissing like flames in the wind. She felt a thrill of power mixed with fear, fear of the curse, fear of losing control, but also a new, exhilarating sense of agency. Kale's eyes softened as he watched her. You are ready, he said, almost in awe. Stronger than I expected. The spirits regrouped, swirling around the clearing like a living storm. Alara stood firm, her hands steady, her mind clear. Kale moved beside her, ready to intervene if necessary, but she no longer needed him to lead. Together they faced the darkness, a unified force of human determination and immortal strength. Hours passed in a blur of motion, strategy, and instinct. Slowly, the spirits began to retreat, sensing that the balance of power had shifted. Alara's magic, guided by her courage and Kale's protective presence, had forced them back. When the last shadow faded into the forest, the air grew still. The fog drifted lazily through the trees as if nothing had disturbed it at all. Alara's knees wobbled from exhaustion and Kale caught her before she fell, his arm steadying her. You did it, he said softly, his voice carrying pride and relief. You faced them and survived. Alara's lips quivered, a mixture of fatigue and exhilaration flooding her. I did because you were here. Kale's gaze held hers, intense and unwavering. No, you did it because you are strong. I only helped you see it. For a moment, silence settled between them, heavy and full of unspoken words. The night had tested them, forced them to confront danger and fear, yet it had also drawn them closer, knitting their fates together in ways neither had anticipated. But even in this moment of quiet triumph, a new unease settled over Kale. He sensed it deep in the forest, a faint, deliberate movement, a shadow unlike the others. Someone or something watched them from the trees, patient and calculating. Alara, he said, his voice low, this is not over. Someone or something is still out there observing. The spirits were only the first test. I fear there is more to come. Alara nodded, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Then we prepare, she said, her voice firm. Whatever comes, we face it together. Kale's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. Together, he echoed. The sun began to rise over the distant peaks, painting the fog with streaks of gold. The forest seemed calm, yet the shadows lingered at its edge, waiting. Kale and Alara stood side by side, aware that the bond formed between them was now stronger than ever. A bond forged in danger, trust, and the first hints of something more profound. As they returned to the castle, Kale's mind was already moving ahead, considering the possibilities, the threats, and the challenges that lay before them. The war was not over. The curse was not fully understood. And yet, for the first time in centuries, he allowed himself to feel something he had thought long lost: hope. Alara, walking beside him, felt it too, a fragile, precious hope that perhaps, for the first time, she would not face her fate alone. The nights of fear and solitude had not broken her. They had only prepared her for this moment. And with Kale by her side, she felt a courage she had never known. Somewhere deep in the forest, unseen eyes watched them retreat to safety, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The danger had not vanished. It had only changed shape. And when it returned, Alara and Kale would be ready, united in strength, in purpose, and perhaps in the first hints of a bond that neither darkness nor curse could easily break. The night had tested them. The morning had not yet promised peace, but for the first time they faced the future together, knowing that whatever came, they would not face it alone. And far beyond the mountains, in shadows too distant to see, a presence stirred, patient and calculating, waiting for the moment when the curse and its guardian could be challenged once more. The blood-red moon hung low over the peaks surrounding Werewolf Castle, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the misty forest. The night air was thick with magic, charged and alive, whispering secrets that had waited centuries to be spoken. Inside the castle, Kale moved silently, senses alert to every sound: the rustle of leaves, the faint hum of energy in the air, the steady heartbeat of the forest itself. Alara stood at the edge of the courtyard, her cloak wrapped tightly around her shoulders, but it did little to shield her from the chill that ran through her veins. The air felt heavy, oppressive, as if the night itself was holding its breath. She tightened her grip on the small pendant her late husband had left her, a reminder of loss, and yet a symbol of endurance. Kale appeared beside her, his dark eyes gleaming under the moonlight. He had revealed his true form to her now, letting the faint glow of his immortal power show in the shadows of the courtyard. It was a form of trust he had never given lightly, but this night demanded it. "They are close," Kale said softly. "The source of the curse, the entity that has haunted you all these years, it has sensed your strength. It will not wait much longer." Alara swallowed, her throat tight. "I am ready," she said, though even she could feel the tremor of fear under her words. "I must be." "There is no other choice," Kale nodded, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "We face it together, remember that." From the edge of the forest, a shadow moved, a presence that was both solid and fleeting. The air seemed to darken, and an almost silent vibration pulsed through the ground. The curse's entity had arrived. Its form was shifting, flickering like smoke, yet it radiated a malevolent intelligence. Alara stepped forward, her voice steady. "I will not let you control me. I will not let you harm anyone else." The entity hissed, a sound that echoed in the night like distant thunder. Its form grew sharper, more defined, and it surged forward, testing her will, probing her fear. Kale moved to her side, his presence a shield of both power and reassurance. "Do not fight it alone," he said. "You are stronger than you believe. Let me help you." Alara nodded, closing her eyes briefly. She reached deep within herself, feeling the pulse of her curse, the strange energy that had haunted her life for so long. She had feared it, hidden from it, yet now she realized it could be a weapon if she controlled it. Kale extended his hand, placing it lightly over hers. The warmth of his touch grounded her, focused her, and for the first time she felt not fear but purpose. Together, they guided the magic outward, a controlled pulse that illuminated the night with a faint, silver glow. The entity recoiled, screeching as if surprised by her strength. It circled them, shifting forms, striking with bursts of shadow and energy. But Kale moved with precision, shielding her, directing her power and letting her act. Every pulse of energy, every defensive strike, every flicker of light was a partnership, a dance of trust and determination. "You can do this," Kale whispered. "I will not let you fall. Focus, Alara. Let the magic flow through you, not against you." Alara opened her eyes, feeling a surge of power, confidence, and control. The curse that had once been a burden was now a tool, a weapon of protection and strength. She drew it forward with intention, and the entity shrieked as its form began to unravel, unable to withstand the combined force of her will and Kale's guidance. The battle seemed endless, time stretching and twisting around them, but slowly the entity weakened, its form flickering like dying embers. Alara could feel it, its power faltering, its hold breaking. She pushed forward, her pulse synchronized with Kale's steady presence beside her. Finally, with a concentrated burst of energy, she banished it, sending a wave of silver light that scattered the darkness. The forest fell silent, the shadows retreating as if expelled from the night itself. Alara sank to her knees, exhausted, her hands trembling from the release of energy. Kale knelt beside her, supporting her, his eyes filled with admiration and concern. "You did it," he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You faced it and you prevailed." Alara's breath came in shaky bursts, but a smile broke through her exhaustion. I did because you were here." Kale shook his head, a faint smile touching his lips. "No. You did this yourself. I only helped you see your strength." They remained there for a long moment, the weight of the night pressing down, but also the relief of victory lifting them. The curse was broken, not entirely erased, but transformed. It no longer controlled her. It no longer demanded isolation or fear. Alara felt the chains of her past fall away, replaced with a newfound sense of freedom. Kale's hand stayed lightly on hers, a grounding presence in the quiet aftermath. "You are free," he said. "Not just from the curse, but from the fear that held you for so long." Tears welled in Alara's eyes, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of release, of understanding, of hope. She had survived, and she had discovered her strength. And in this moment, she realized something even deeper, that she could trust Kale with more than her life. She could trust him with her heart. Kale's gaze softened, and for the first time in centuries he allowed himself to feel fully, not the control of power, not the solitude of immortality, but the warmth of connection. He had walked through darkness and danger, yet here, beside Alara, he felt a light that he had not known existed in his endless existence. The castle, once shadowed and foreboding, seemed to breathe with them, the flickering candlelight now warm and welcoming. The fog outside lifted slightly, revealing the peaks bathed in the faint glow of dawn. Life, fragile and beautiful, had returned to the night. Alara stood slowly, supported by Kale's steady presence. "We survived," she said, her voice soft but certain. "Yes," Kale replied, his tone carrying both relief and reverence. "And now we can face whatever comes next together." Their eyes met, and in that moment, centuries of fear, loss, and solitude melted into a quiet understanding. The night had tested them, pushed them to the limits of courage and trust, and they had emerged stronger for it. The bond forged in shadows and danger had become unbreakable. Outside the castle, the forest remained calm, but the distant mountains whispered of other challenges yet to come. The night was never truly still, and darkness never fully vanished. Yet Kale and Alara had discovered a truth more powerful than fear, that together they could face anything. The sun rose higher, spilling light across the courtyard, casting long shadows that merged with the remnants of the night. Alara took Kale's hand, the warmth of his touch grounding her in a reality she had once thought impossible, a future not ruled by fear, but by choice, by courage, and by trust. Kale led her to the highest tower, where the wind carried the scent of wildflowers and pine. They stood side by side, looking over the misty peaks, the castle below, and the forest that had been both prison and proving ground. "You are not just a survivor," Kale said softly, his hand brushing lightly against hers. "You are a protector, a fighter, and now someone I care for deeply." Alara felt her heart swell, emotions she had kept buried for years rising to the surface. "And you," she said, her voice trembling with honesty, "have shown me that even in darkness there can be trust. That even in fear there can be hope." They stood together as the first full light of day touched the peaks, illuminating their path forward. No longer bound by curse or fear, they faced the future with strength, courage, and a bond that had been tested and proven unbreakable. And in the quiet of that dawn, as the world slowly awakened around them, Kale and Alara understood something essential, that redemption was not merely survival. It was the choice to embrace connection, trust, and love, even in the face of centuries of darkness. Far beyond the castle, in the depths of the forest, a faint shadow stirred, but it was smaller now, weaker and powerless against the combined strength of Kale and Alara. The night would come again as it always did, but they were ready. Together they would face it, not with fear, but with courage and with hearts united. The blood-red moon faded behind the rising sun, leaving only warmth and light. And in that light, Kale and Alara stood side by side, their journey through shadow and fear complete, their bond sealed by trust, by strength, and by a love that could survive even the darkest night. For the first time, both felt it fully. The night was conquered, the curse was broken, and the dawn belonged to them.